This title is tripping me out. Originally, this was meant to be a top 10 list of the top 10 best metalcore bands, but as I went about completing this task and making this list, I realized that they were more so just bands that I liked and respected, so it's morphed into this. So, another reason why that is because metalcore is actually pretty expansive. It's a huge, huge subgenre, and actually its roots are traced way further back than just the early part of the 1990s. It actually goes all the way back to the 80s, at least in the vernacular sense. It was a term that was used to kind of identify crossover thrash bands as opposed to just the regular thrash scene. So a band such as Suicidal Tendencies could have been labeled at one point in time as metalcore, which seems kind of weird to us to this day, but that was before metalcore really became known as something else and morphed into something else and became its own viable subgenre of the heavy metal culture, which is of course something that happened after the 90s and with the explosion in the 2000s. So based around this list is definitely ones that I definitely respect. There's going to be a lot of names on here that you recognize. There may be a couple that you don't. However, there are some that I feel like I'm ignoring, and that's like bands such, from the 1990s, such as Earth Crisis, that certainly we owe a lot of debt to in the metalcore department, based around their what they've really done. You're not going to see like Pantera or Sepultura on this list based around the fact that they just sort of influenced it. They're not directly metalcore bands. And then you're also not going to see bands that feel like they're very fringe-lined from today as well. Like Avenged Sevenfold, some people would call metalcore, especially their first couple of albums, but they really lean more toward just the regular heavy metal department. And even Between the Buried and Me, for me, I would just call them a progressive metalcore band or a progressive metal band because they're just all over the place out there, and they are so far and beyond different that it just seems like they've become something completely different, which is really awesome. So, explanations aside, let's move on to this list. Let's start from the bottom and go up like it was a top 10 list, but we're just going to talk about bands, so let's check it out. The first band that we're going to talk about is As I Lay Dying. As I Lay Dying had an album in 2003 called Frail Words Collapse that, for me, as a vocalist of 18 or 19 years old, encouraged me that my style of vocals was maybe once again coming into prominence. Very clean vocals. I was never very good at the whole death vocals or the gruff vocals, the rough vocals, whatever that you yourself decide to call them. And there was a track on this album that sounded basically just like the same style that I would be using at that time frame and actually sounded very similar to my voice. So there's a little bit of camaraderie there, but aside from that, it's just a fantastic album, Frail Words Collapse is. And As I Lay Dying just continued to become a bigger and bigger product, a bigger and bigger band as the 2000s wore on, and really showcased what metalcore was kind of all about, had an aggressive side to it. They did also have a little bit more of a simmered down portion to their sound, but in most cases they did like to keep it very aggressive all the way up until, of course, everything that happened with Tim a couple of years ago. Now, the rest of the band hooked up with another vocalist, are Woven War right now. We reviewed the Woven War album last year whenever it came out, their only album thus far, and it was very good, which showcases that this band was filled with competent musicians that definitely knew how to write a great track and was able to transition that even with some stylistic shifts here and there. It's not a huge differential, but Woven War is kind of a different beast than As I Lay Dying, so it definitely showcases that they're able to write in a different way very, very well, and definitely write to sort of the strengths of their new lead singer. But As I Lay Dying, great band, check them out. Up next we have the Dillinger Escape Plan. Now this is another fringe band that I decided to keep on the list here because of their importance to the metalcore genre. Now this is a group that's traditionally more so linked to mathcore, but mathcore is actually just a subdivision of metalcore, and metalcore of course just being a subdivision of hardcore and heavy metal music. You see how this has just treed itself down to some sort of fucked up Ancestry.com bullshit. But Dillinger Escape Plan have, really there's a lot of bands that can owe a heavy debt to this group because they were able to showcase how you can take the chaos and the absolute confusion, the destruction, the destructive properties of punk music with different time signatures, with a little bit of a debt to prog, with a little bit of a debt to a lot of just really, really heavy riffing, and kind of contort this chaos into something that's not only very approachable and listenable, but also very competent. And Dillinger has been able to do this ever since they started, ever since their earliest versions of their earliest albums in the 1990s, when there were a lot of people hearing about this group along with Fear Factory, perhaps for the first time. So this group definitely is a trailblazer for this genre. It's definitely one of the more unique groups within the metalcore genre because they themselves helped launch a secondary movement, with mathcore coming even further down the line. It was something that was present already somewhat. However, Dillinger really put it over the top. Dillinger really made it something that was attractive. It really made it something that was kind of attainable. If you listen to a lot of the modern groups of today that like to use some of the similar idealistics of a Dillinger Escape Plan album, that like to use a lot of chaos in order to create harmony, and I'm even thinking about the Jet movement a little bit to this credit. I'm thinking of Periphery's Juggernaut Alpha and Omega, with some locations where there's just some downright dissonant sounding stuff, but at the same time, look at Dillinger. There's a lot of groups that really owe a great debt to Dillinger, so this is a very important band, a trailblazing band within this department, even though most people don't know them as a metalcore band. It's really a potato and potato type of thing. If you don't know them, check them out. Every Time I Die is the next group on this little foray, this open forum. From Parts Unknown last year was a very, very good album, and it really showcased that Every Time I Die has this kind of very mixed palette, this mixed bag, this grouping of different ideas and different styles, these shifts and these little amalgamations of themselves that expose themselves on each and every track, very much like Dillinger in the fact that you're not quite sure what's going to happen next. And because of this, they're able to use this to their advantage to create very diverse, very strange, but at the same time, hugely entertaining and very listenable albums, from Parts Unknown being the most recent of that category. Based around this, I feel that this is a group that does not necessarily apply or really appeal to everybody because they have that unknown feeling. Perhaps they're not as familiar with Every Time I Die, but they try it for the very first time, and it kind of is too much chaos, so to speak. Too much of a good thing can sometimes be a bad thing, but this is a group that really controls itself very well. It's very easily controlling of its compulsions, not to mention very, very talented individuals. Very, very, very talented musicians. Really enjoy this group, really enjoyed From Parts Unknown. Their past work is also halfway decent, definitely explorable. Check them out. This is a group that I feel could really become even bigger than they are right now. So get on board right now before that happens. I feel the next album, they could really go over the top. Up next is Lamb of God. Fourth band we talk about on this list is Lamb of God. Holy shit. Everyone knows about Lamb of God, right? I hope so. I hope so. This is a group that definitely took the whole concept of metalcore and just made it aggressive as holy fuck. You would not even think of these guys as a metalcore group, but really the stylings are very similar. There's a lot of debts to thrash and heavy metal. There's definitely an attitude there that is very much paying homage and thanks to people of its kind. I mean, it's almost like Randy Blythe is the new, Phil Anselmo from Pantera, especially whenever you consider some of his rage-filled screams and antics from the early days, from albums such as New American Gospel. It's hard to really pinpoint these guys as just a metalcore band, but I tell you what, it's a tag that sticks. It's one that actually works out quite nicely and showcases that metalcore is not just all about a certain tone level. It's one where it can become even more dirty, even more destructive. It can have a very heavy side to it. It's almost like exploring the progressive music genre by and large, and you get everything from chamber music to fucking Opeth. I know it seems kind of like a little bit of a difference. Same general idea, though. Imagine if there were chamber music that was metalcore. That'd be really strange. But then imagine Lamb of God being your upper echelon, your upper side, your upside. This is one that definitely has a little bit more of a debt to pay to bands such as Pantera. However, at the same time, killer tunes. Still waiting for the new album. Can't wait for it. It's going to be a lot of fun to review. I had a lot of fun reviewing albums such as Sacrament. So this is a group that I'm sure that you've heard of, but you should definitely check out. It's a group that's almost impossible not to like, unless you just don't like the dudes in the band or don't like the style in general. Ringworm is up next. These guys are exceptionally important. These guys have been trailblazing since the latter part of the 1980s, so the metalcore tag, whenever they first got started, probably didn't exist for them. In fact, a lot of people probably looked at them and wondered what the fuck they truly were, because they were a little bit out there. They had this kind of new tonal quality to them, and they've been just releasing albums every couple of years for quite some time, and really, a lot of their momentum has been very, very recent. There have been interspersed moments where they've gotten some press and some major attention prior to that, but Ringworm exists as a group that just doesn't pull any punches. They have a lot of fun with what they do, but at the same time, it's very direct. They had a great album last year that certainly demands your respect, not to mention demands your listen, and it's just really, really solid work and material. Throughout the course of their career, they've only gotten better and better, and it just seems like their focus has become more and more driven. Not that this old stuff lacked the focus, it's just the fact that now it seems very, very tactical, very precise, even though there's chaos within. There's a lot to really uncover with these guys, so get to work. Killswitch Engage is up next. And this one's obvious. These guys are not only one of the most popular groups in all of metalcore history, but Adam is one of the luckiest motherfuckers on the planet, period. Because not only did his band, Killswitch Engage, come along while an entire movement was happening, which thus made him one of the most popular heavy metal groups of the metalcore and really just of metal during the first period of the 2000s, but motherfucker just won a whole lot of shit on The Price is Right. For those European folks that don't know what The Price is Right is, it's an American game show, and he won the shit out of it. It was pretty ridiculous. There's YouTube videos, look that shit up. But Killswitch is exceptionally important based around what they've done for the genre, and also just the fact that their music is very much fringe-worthy. It's fringe-worthy in the fact that hardcore metal fans can listen to it and not feel like they're going and veering too far off course and kind of going into that dangerous pop music territory, because it's definitely not pop by a long stretch of the imagination. But a lot of people that are not metalheads are able to explore Killswitch Engage and immediately feel a little bit of comfort. They're able to feel a little bit of safety within the genre, and definitely there's a lot of relatable elements within the lyricism, or even with how they relate to the music whenever they hear it, coupled with the lyricism or even without it, that really has maybe converted some people on board to that side of the fence. These are the folks that perhaps will be listening or have listened to mainly just nu metal up to that point, or principally listened to nu metal, or not metal at all at that point, and Killswitch has been able to annex a lot of people in. So this is a group that has tremendous appeal. They've just gotten their old lead singer back, and they've gone through just so many different cool little changes, and every album feels like it gets bigger and bigger than the last one, without totally destroying the sound that they were able to start with albums such as Alive or Just Breathing from the first part of the 2000s. Great band. Definitely like them, definitely respect them. I've seen them live a couple of times. Can't go wrong. Let's go on. Trivium. You might think, why the fuck are these guys even on this list? Yeah. You guys probably know me as the guy that's bashed the holy hell the last couple of Trivium records. But the first couple Trivium records are fucking awesome. They're really, really good. You talk about the, first three or so, and man, oh man, you just have some great, great stuff. This is metalcore. I mean, it really is metalcore. It fits the mold. Perhaps it has ones that lean a little bit here and there within heavy metal, maybe a little bit of the Gothenburg sound, but that's really, really splitting some fine fucking hairs. But all in all, one of the key aspects about this group is the fact that you feel like you're listening to a metal band. You feel like you're listening to it. It's not like this specialty little, bullshit garbage exercise. It doesn't feel like a niche type thing. Whenever you listen to Trivium's first couple albums, you feel like you're listening to a metal band. Same thing is actually true of their latter couple of albums as well, the more recent ones. However, it sounds like you're listening to Metallica Part 2, which Metallica's a metal band, so you're listening to a metal band. But you get my point. The first couple of albums really, really exhibited fantastic guitar work and very, very pristine and precise songwriting. Songwriting that definitely has helped aid them in the future to avoid a lot of mistakes, but at the same time, they've used and morphed their sound a little bit just in ways that doesn't exactly back up the early successes that they really had. That's just at least in one man's opinion. I'm sure a lot of you out there love the piss out of this band, and that's easy to see why. Think about it. Whenever you listen to this group, you hear a lot of shades of a band such as Metallica. Just like Bullet for My Valentine, whenever they first come out, at times you felt like you were listening to a bit of Iron Maiden. And I don't mean that bullshit Papa Roach riff, Iron Maiden bullshit where it sounds just like it or blah blah blah. Fuck that. No, it sounds like you're actually listening to something that Iron Maiden could play musically, just with kind of a different vocal style behind it. And that's what makes these two bands very closely coupled. Their early material is pretty solid work. It's actually pretty well done. It's just the more recent stuff where they kind of need to fine-tune things a little bit and kind of get back to where they were. I understand musical evolution. I understand growing and maturing as an artist, but this is one that almost seemed like they kind of grabbed on board of the fact that their first couple albums did really, really well and just decided to not fucking do that much afterward. It's just a strange situation. But I have respect for both of these bands. I think both of these bands have a great deal of potential, and I'm just waiting to see it actually come out in album form. Again. Up next we have Converge. What can't be said about Converge? Converge definitely is a band that could be seen as a forefather, a granddaddy, godfather of this subgenre. One that owes a lot more and showcases a lot more of its hardcore punk side, but also is able to kind of morph everything down. Metalcore. Converge is a hugely recognizable name, but it's a band that oftentimes doesn't get the same amount of attention or the same amount of respect that they truly deserve, which is kind of odd, considering they're a trailblazer. They're an important group. One thing that you'll notice, a lot of trailblazers, they tend not to get mentioned unless you're talking to the bands that, they were blazed from or something. But yeah, this band has been around for a very, very long period of time, since the late 80s, early 1990s, and they have many seminal works, very, very important works for the whole metalcore genre. They're still active today. And they're still making great music. They're still kicking out some great tunes, and they are a group that is absolutely essential for you to check out. You need to always know where you came from if you're a metalcore fan or a fan of any style of music. That's the reason why if you're into heavy metal, you should always trace your roots back to the 60s and the 70s. If you are a metalcore fan, you need to trace your roots back to bands such as Converge, such as Shai Halud, bands such as Earth Crisis, and a band that we're going to be talking about here in a couple of moments, Overcast. So this is a group where you definitely need to check them out based around their historical significance, but also based around the fact that they're just a damn good band. There's so much energy. There's so much fucking energy. You can get so much adrenaline from listening to these guys, and they're a very, very diverse, they're a very creative bunch. Just check them out, please. Just check them out. Next up, and actually second to last on this list, we have Unearth. What can't be said about Unearth, aside from the fact that, in my honest opinion, I feel them to be the most consistent of all the metalcore bands. There's not a single Unearth album that I really dislike, that I really feel is lackluster. I feel that all of them really have at least something that they've brought to the table that makes them above average. And they continue to take the genre and not necessarily try to rewrite the books every single time they come out with a new album. They stick with what they know, and what they do is they just try to continue to morph their own songwriting process of what they know, in order to make it a little bit more fresh, in order to give it a refreshing, taste or idea. So they're not trying to go out and trailblaze a brand new subgenre. Instead, they're just working very well within the subgenre that they are within. Think about if Iron Maiden went out and decided to try to make a thrash record whenever they had just made albums such as Number of the Beast, Peace of Mind, Power Slave, just to name a couple. It would sound kind of forced. It would sound kind of wrong. It would sound like they were trying to be something that they weren't. That would be what would happen if Unearth decided to go out and all of a sudden become a progressive deathcore band. It's something that maybe they'd be able to pull off, but the result would just sound kind of helter-skelter. It wouldn't sound correct. It would sound as though they were trying to force themselves to be something that they couldn't be. That's why they don't do that. And we're very thankful because of that. Easily one of the most consistent bands within this whole entire subgenre. You'll know why in a moment. But goddamn. Really, really good group. Highly recommend them. Can't recommend them enough. Check them out. But then we get to the last one, the granddaddy one that actually links us to a lot of things from the past, from the present, and to the future, and that is the band Shadows Fall. Shadows Fall links us to a lot of different things. For one, it links us to Shadows Fall, because that's who the fuck they are. I know. Surprised? I'm not. Shadows Fall, of course, started off as a very different band as from what they became. Of course, they were a group that had an original lead singer that eventually would go on to form All That Remains after one album with the group. And they were able to recruit the vocalist of a very, very respectable metalcore pioneering band, and that is Overcast. But now let's talk about Shadows Fall, and let's actually talk about All That Remains a little bit too. By the way, listen to anything that Overcast has done. Just do it. You will fucking thank yourself. Terrific group. Very, very good. Terrific, terrific stuff. But Shadows Fall and All That Remains are the names that you remember. Those are the names that are known. Those are the names that are widely respected by motherfuckers everywhere. Shadows Fall is respected because they have a unique voice, they have a unique sound, and they have morphed. They have changed on various records. They have gone down the path of the Slump album, where it sounds a little bit too commercial. They've done an album that has kind of the bar raised written all over it. The Art of Balance being a great example of that. They have the Return albums. They have the albums that just feel like they are trying their best to write in the style that they themselves know the best, and that's metalcore. Yeah, this is a group that definitely didn't have the same commercial appeal as some of the other groups that are out there, the Lamb of Gods, the As I Lay Dyings, the Killswitch Engages of the world, but they still had a lot of respect. They were a group that actually was a little bit more in the way of creative as compared to the rest of those, and based around that, you're not going to perhaps have the sales certifications or the long scale careers that some of the other peers have had and enjoyed, and actually really gotten to enjoy in some luxury. But it's a group that certainly has a musical discography that is beyond comparison. It's fantastic. And then you have All That Remains. All That Remains, a side project idea from the original lead singer of Shadows Fall. Yeah, this group is phenomenal as well, with their first couple of albums. It's another one of those deals. Their first couple of albums, this group is fantastic. All That Remains did everything correctly. They basically incorporated the metalcore structure, gave it an aggressiveness, a real guitar-centered aggressiveness. Six got on to Guitar Hero, and everybody knew who the fuck All That Remains were. Now they have said and claimed that they've transcended metal. And their stuff is becoming more... Well, let's just put it this way, the word sellout has been mentioned to my ears more often than not, or more than once, based around All That Remains and their more recent outputs. And I can't necessarily disagree. I'm not a huge fan of the word sellout. It's definitely a difference by comparison to their early work. However, selling out and saying that you've transcended metal sounds more like a philosophy change to me. And actually, selling out makes a little bit more sense because it sounds like the money's being followed. Sounds like you make something that's very, very geared toward the radio. It does change you. But All That Remains is still a band that I respect, in spite of all of this, in spite of everything, in spite of anything in the future that I may say about them regarding their new album, which is coming very soon. I respect them for their early work. I respect them for the songs that did bring a lot of joy from albums such as Behind Silence and Solitude and etc., etc. It's the Fall of Ideals. The fucking Fall of Ideals. Jesus Christ, what a fucking album. But we'll see how the trend continues. Well, there you have it, guys. I mean, there's at least 12 bands that I respect from the metalcore genre, that I like from the metalcore genre. I've talked about a handful of others. I'm sure that there's others that I missed or that you felt that I left off. What are your favorites? Post your top 10 list underneath here in the comments. Review some of the bands yourselves. Do whatever you would like to do. I want to know what you guys think. This is a subgenre that definitely has a lot of momentum and still a very heavy fan base. So let me know what you think. See ya.